Hey, welcome to Anime What Ifs. This is episode 22 of What If Naruto Married Temari. A bolt of pure panic raced down Naruto's spine at the sight of Itachi, his mind kicking into overdrive mostly with thought of shit. Underlying that was a more rational thought stream. This one told him that he was vastly outclassed and needed to retreat and summon help. A quick glance off to the side noted the light in his bedroom window, reminding him that if he retreated, he would need to grab Temari as well. The analysis took seconds at most. He wasn't the most book-smart person, but few could read a battlefield like he did. Deciding that the best chance for escape was to simply smother Itachi and clones as a distraction, Naruto formed the necessary hand seals only to blink when nothing happened. Itachi advanced further into the light, a gleam momentarily reflecting off the kodachi he held in a relaxed manner at his side. Naruto-kun, welcome to my world. Here I control everything that happens. Itachi stopped facing Naruto just outside immediate strike range. I've heard that you've learned to handle a blade well. I wish to test myself against you. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Something about this seemed off to him, but it seemed like Itachi wasn't exactly going to give him a choice. Reaching for the seal he stored his kodachi in, he was startled when he touched bare skin. Looking down, his eyes bulged in disbelief as he realized he'd given Temari his jacket. That was bad, that was really bad. He stored all his heavier equipment like his kodachi and most of his explosive tags in the jacket cause it was convenient. Sheepishly rubbing the back of his neck, he gave Itachi a foxy grin. Well, it seems I don't have that here. I don't suppose you'll let me go get it? The narrowing of Itachi's eyes in what appeared to be irritation gave him his answer. Wow, I don't think I've ever seen him show even that much emotion. I'll take that as a no then. Naruto-kun, Itachi said, very light traces of annoyance in his tone. A shinobi should be prepared at all times. Naruto crossed his arms across his chest and pouted. It's not like I'm unarmed, it's just most of my better stuff is in my jacket and Temari-chan was cold. A moment of silence fell and Naruto could swear it felt like Itachi was rolling his eyes at him. It was very confusing because he could see that he physically wasn't, but that didn't change the feeling. Very well then, Itachi said, raising the hand not carrying his blade, and in front of Naruto a small table appeared with several swords on it. Shoes. Great, still screwed, Naruto thought somewhat sarcastically as he began checking the swords for one with a balance he liked. The fourth one was a kodachi that felt very similar to his, perhaps a bit heavier, and after experimentally drawing it a few times and taking a few slashes with it chose to use it. Nodding to Itachi, he stepped back and mirrored Itachi's casual stance while sliding the scabbard through his belt. He tensed as the table disappeared, but Itachi continued to stand there with an impassive stare that was really getting on his nerves. He made a small gesture with his blade, more felt than seen, and Naruto lunged forward to strike. Naruto was happy that whatever Itachi had done to nullify his active chakra usage didn't seem to affect his ability to internally boost himself, but it wasn't really doing him much good. As Itachi barely seemed to move with his blocks and parries, Naruto lamented in his mind on how useful his clones would have been. Driving in closer, Naruto launched a vicious low, high, middle combination intending to bisect Itachi and end the duel. He barely saw it when Itachi ghosted out of the way and barely managed to deflect a straight thrust at his face so that it grazed past his ear. Jumping back for space, he tried to catch his breath as he reviewed the information from the brief exchange of blows. Itachi wasn't breathing hard, barely even sweating while he was somewhat winded. He gritted his teeth as he realized Itachi was just toying with him. He considered ways he could get Itachi to take things seriously, but fighting in the garden nullified most of his plans. There were no trees to play hide and seek in. He could possibly use the benches for cover, but that seemed more likely to get him killed. There really wasn't anything he could use to his advantage. Why did he have to provoke the fight in such a bad place? It seemed Itachi was done letting him rest, and again Naruto barely saw him move as he attacked. Staggering back under the assault and barely keeping skin intact, Naruto realized Itachi was being more serious now. Since Itachi was moving only slightly faster than before, he highly doubted Itachi was using his full strength. It was more like he was pushing to see what Naruto could do. Seeing an opening he knew Itachi had probably given him, Naruto launched a counter of his own, strong powerful blows intended to smash through Itachi's precision-based blocks. Against a less experienced opponent, it might have worked. Against Itachi Uchiha, not so much. He barely saw it as Itachi moved in a blur to circle around him, and then his focus was more on the burning pain in his torso as a blade erupted from his chest. With another burst of agony, the blade was removed and Naruto dropped to his knees, the strength disappearing from his legs. He knew he was badly hurt but was determined that if he had to die, he was at least going to take Itachi with him. Pushing himself to his feet with sheer determination, he blinked in surprise when he found himself facing off with Itachi without pain. Risking a look down, he ran his free hand over his chest in confusion. What the hell? Where did the wound go? Raising his other hand in bewilderment, he tried to figure out how the Kodachi had returned to his hand as well. This makes no sense? Wait, maybe I can turn back time? Is that my power as a Jinchuriki? Cause that would be awesome. I told you, Naruto-kun, this is my world. I control everything that happens here, Itachi said impassively. I'm disappointed in you. I was expecting at least a small challenge. Annoyed by the dismissal of his skills and by the dashing of his hopes for a cool Jinchuriki power, Naruto charged forward, blade raised for an overhand strike. Itachi let him close in and let the strike land only to explode into a flock of crows. The short moment Naruto gawked at the sight allowed Itachi to counter, and Naruto felt a sharp pain in his neck before he had the odd experience of watching his headless body drop before his head hit the ground and he was whole again. I don't understand what he's doing, but I guess he's done playing now. Several quick and painful deaths caused Naruto to stop and reconsider his strategy. He'd kill for some clones, but his repeated deaths had fulfilled their usual scouting duties. Unlike his attacks, Itachi's were all precision, drawing their power from the speed of his blade. Naruto considered how he could adapt that to his style of swordsmanship and almost face-faulted when he realized he'd been doing it wrong. His mother's genjutsu style as a woman wouldn't have relied on brute power like he'd been practicing, but on speed and flexibility. He felt so stupid as he realized that a strike using speed as the source of its power would obviously be faster and reduce the tendency to leave himself open. If he needed to break through, he could always use the power required after the strike landed. As was his tendency on the battlefield, the realizations and analysis took seconds at most, and Naruto groaned when he realized he was going to have to adapt his genjutsu while fighting Itachi. This is gonna suck, he thought glumly as he slid forward to engage Itachi again, focusing on controlling his tendency to overpower his attacks. Now that he was focusing on speed, his mother's genjutsu felt even more natural than it had before. Very soon he was beginning to hold his own against Itachi for longer and longer periods of time. It didn't keep Itachi from killing him, of course. With typical determination for him, Naruto would simply shrug each death off as a part of doing business and continue to refine his swordsmanship. He wasn't sure how long he'd been fighting Itachi, but Naruto was exhausted. Only that he was reinforcing himself with chakra was keeping him going at all. Still, he was pleased that Itachi hadn't managed to kill him in a while. Come close, yes, and Naruto had some serious injuries to show it, but he'd avoided dying. As the battle had been pure genjutsu to that point, Naruto was taken completely by surprise when Itachi parried a slash, then backhanded him hard enough to knock him into a tree. As he sank into unconsciousness, Naruto saw those red eyes even through the darkness. Waking in pain, he forced his eyes open and groaned when he found himself chained to a cross, Itachi sitting in front of him sipping what appeared to be tea at a table. Itachi regarded him for a moment. "If you promise to be civil, I can release you." Naruto blared in response as he shifted against his bonds. "Why? None of this makes any sense," he spit out. Itachi shrugged apathetically. "To test myself, of course. It's unfortunate that you aren't a challenge at the moment, but potentially you could be. Now, will you promise to be civil, or must I keep you hanging up there?" Naruto gritted his teeth and swallowed his pride. "Fine, I promise that I will not attack you unless you or an accomplice attack me first. I haven't forgotten you travel with that big blue fish guy, you know." Itachi raised his hands and the chains holding Naruto up fell away, dropping him to the ground. Your terms are acceptable. You should have a seat, Naruto-kun, we have much to speak on. Justifiable cautious, Naruto moved to take a seat across the table from Itachi. I'm not sure I have anything I would like to discuss with a traitor, he replied, as evenly as he could. He wasn't really expecting anything from this, but the longer Itachi talked, the more rested he would become. For that reason and that reason alone, he was willing to play along with this farce. Itachi shifted in his chair and leaned forward slightly. I'm sure you'd be surprised, Naruto-kun. First, I have been unable to contact Jiraiya-sama for some time, and he left instructions that if he was unavailable, information was to be routed to you, his apprentice. Those words dropped like a bomb, and Naruto half stood from his chair as he stared at Itachi with his jaw hanging open. Say what? Itachi ignored the outburst. Your actions against the Gobi have lessened the immediate threat to Konoha, but may result in the village being destroyed in just under 5 years. Itachi waited until Naruto sank limply into his chair. I can tell you do not know of what I speak. Do you know what happens when a Jinchuriki is killed, Naruto-kun? Naruto shook his head wordlessly. I assumed that they died. The fox is worried about that happening. Itachi tilted his head as he regarded Naruto with light curiosity. No, you are a special case, Naruto-kun. Your seal was brought into being using the power of a god. I believe no one is sure what would happen if you die, but other Jinchuriki, we know what happens if they do. The chakra of the Biju dissipates, then will reform on the spot. Its Jinchuriki was killed at a time coinciding with its number of tails. In this case, 5 years, one for each tail of the Gobi. Alright, that sounds bad, Naruto admitted. I'm not seeing Konoha being destroyed though. The fight was outside the village, and I'll still be here, and I'll be much stronger in 5 years. Itachi's eyebrow rose. Strong enough to fight all 4 major villages and Akatsuki at the same time? He inquired condescendingly. It's very rare for a Biju to be available, many minor villages may show as well. Akatsuki has even received orders to stop tracking the other Biju and focus on recruiting. In 5 years, armies will clash, and it will be your defeat of the Gobi that was responsible. Naruto's face was pale as he considered Itachi's words. He could see what Itachi was saying. Few villages would be able to resist the shot at instant power a Jinchuriki created. He refused to see it as his fault though. Yes, he and Gaara had defeated Han and released the Gobi, but the only other choice was to die and possibly unleash the Kyuubi. I see, so what do you suggest then? Itachi once more flavored his words with traces of condescension. I suggest nothing, I merely require you to report this to Hokage-sama in your master's place. Naruto growled before something profound struck him. Wait, you're a traitor. Why would you be reporting to Ero Sennin? He fixed his gaze and continued to think out loud. Unless you aren't really a traitor. Still, why would? The old man was always one for peaceful solutions, though, so why? Naruto shot Itachi a glance and noticed he seemed slightly uncomfortable. So, you were ordered to eliminate the Uchiha and left to focus the village away from finding out. Naruto continued to mutter his thoughts while watching Itachi's reactions. The man had near-perfect control, but you don't fight someone for hours without learning to read them at least somewhat, and Itachi was showing slight signs of nervousness. So now you report on Akatsuki for Ero Sennin, but that doesn't explain Sasuke. Definite reaction there, something important most likely. Naruto sat back in his chair and stared at Itachi. I'm curious why you haven't said anything about my thoughts. I know I'm right, I can feel it in my gut, but aside from being a little nervous, you haven't reacted. Why? Itachi gazed back calmly, not surprising at all to Naruto. You are being trained by a spy master, one that already knows those secrets. As you've already ruined my initial plans, I'm not concerned that you know these things. Ruined your plan, huh? Naruto racked his brain to try and think of what he'd done that would affect Itachi. It's not like he'd seen him since the trip with Jiraiya, but that felt wrong. Perhaps I'm looking at this wrong, maybe it's a who instead of a what. That thought in mind, it didn't take long to connect the dots. Sasuke, huh? I was always kind of curious why you let him live. Naruto drummed his fingers on the table. I suppose I understand you wanting to die by your brother's hand for killing your family, but I don't think you really thought that through. For the first time, Itachi showed a strong reaction as he glared at Naruto in anger. If Orochimaru hadn't decided to inflict a curse seal on my brother, it would have worked fine. Naruto frowned at Itachi. No, even if Orochimaru hadn't, I still think things would have ended badly. I was on a team with him, and while he had his good points, before he allowed the seal to control him, he was obsessed with power. Sooner or later he would have gone searching for more. Itachi resumed his usual passive demeanor. Tell me, Naruto-kun, do you hate my brother? I am aware that you did not intend to cripple him, but do you hate him now? Naruto sucked in a breath as he considered it. So many things Sasuke had done lately made him want to smash in his jaw, but did he actually hate him? Unbidden memories of Team 7 before the Chunin exams popped into his head. That Sasuke could be a jerk, but he'd stepped in front of Haku's needles for Naruto. How much of Sasuke's actions were him and how much were the influence of the curse seal? I guess I don't hate him, he finally replied. I've found some of his actions recently to be unforgivable, like what he did with Sakura, but I don't know if that was really him. I kinda wish things could go back to how they were before the Chunin exams, he finished with a sigh. Itachi regarded Naruto silently. The boy was far too forgiving for his own good, but perhaps that would be what saved his brother from his downward spiral. At the moment it seemed to be the only card he had to play, but as always Itachi would be looking for other opportunities. He refused to believe his brother was beyond saving. His thoughts were interrupted by Naruto. You said Akatsuki was ordered to recruit. How many Jinchuriki have you already captured? Itachi debated answering but decided that he might as well. Currently the Rokobi and the Yanbi have been captured and sealed. The Sanbai is currently dispersed and will reform sometime in the next 2 years or so. As you know, the Gobi is dispersed and will most likely reform in around 5 years. Naruto did the math, and it was unpleasant. There are only 5 of us left, huh? That really sucks. Itachi shrugged non-committally. Realizing he couldn't hold Naruto here much longer, he decided to wrap things up. I have passed on the information as Jiraiya-sama ordered, so I will be taking my leave. Releasing Tsukuyomi and absently wiping the blood from his eyes away, he surveyed Naruto's body impassively. He was rather impressed with how fast Naruto could learn if he had to. Mid-Chunin Kenjutsu skills raised up to low Jonin in the timespan of 2 days was rather impressive. He wondered why Jiraiya had ordered him to do this. Given all the enemies he would be facing, Itachi wondered if Naruto could learn fast enough to survive. Coming to a decision, he rolled Naruto over on his back and drawing his Kodachi slashed it across Naruto's arm. Repeating the action on himself, he allowed his wound to bleed freely into Naruto's until it closed due to Naruto's healing ability. Satisfied, he bandaged himself, then tossed a rock at the lit window of the house. Leaving through the woods near the back of the garden, he ran into his partner. Get everything done you needed? Kisame inquired with a toothy grin. Yes, I dealt with Naruto-kun personally and the clones all delivered their messages. Taking the lead, Itachi began moving through the trees towards one of the gaps in Konoha's security. So, what was that thing with the kid at the end anyway? Kisame asked, somehow managing to get his bulk through the trees with little effort. Perhaps nothing, but perhaps everything. Itachi responded in a distant manner. Potentially it could be a major trump card, but there is a strong possibility it won't do anything at all. Kisame grumbled to himself. He preferred odds stack in his favor if he chose to gamble. Not sure why I agreed to side with you some days. Itachi blinked. I didn't ask you to, you just said you knew one day and that you wanted to join me. It's not like we actually trust each other. Kisame roared with laughter. Of course not, we're S-rank criminals, trust is for the stupid or gullible. Still, I owe you, so until that debt is paid, I'll be on your side. How reassuring. Hope you liked this episode, the next one is coming soon.